So first we will have a Japa talk and then we will chant our Japa together. And after that, we will discuss on the very important topic of the 5 ways we can balance humility and self-love, how both are not contradictory. We will discuss that later. But now we will discuss on chanting, and I request all of you to pay attention and then see if this will make sense to you. So now Japa, my humble realization in my little bit of devotional service is that the most powerful technique by which we can take our Japa to the next level is tolerance. When we learn the science and art of tolerance, when we learn how important and powerful tolerance is, we can actually experience deep connection with Krishna's holy names. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk about tolerance in connection to chanting. And then we will practically practice that for a few minutes. And then in your respective homes at a later date, you can all try practicing tolerance. So what is the most famous verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which we always chant to emphasize on humility and tolerance? All of you know this verse? Trinatatis Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. So being humble more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, offering respects to everyone, not expecting respect. Only then we can always chant the holy names. So tolerance, now we are zooming into, there are 4 things here: humility, tolerance, not expecting respect, offering respect to others. We are zooming into tolerance, Saishnuta, Taroriva Saishnuta. Tolerance is at 2 levels. Because we have 2 lives, all of us, right? We have 2 lives. First life is Japa life or spiritual life. We all have spiritual life. We come to temple, we chant, we have worship deities, we take part in kirtan, we hear classes. All this is our spiritual life. Now, believe it or not, you also have a second life, the non-spiritual life. The external world, dealing with your neighbors, dealing with your non-devotee family members, dealing with your extremely demanding boss, dealing with your EMIs, your rents, your mortgage. All of that is a non-spiritual external world. So we have 2 lives. And in both lives, we have to practice tolerance. So in our day-to-day affairs, we have to practice tolerance. And especially during Japa, we have to practice tolerance. So these 2 realities of practicing tolerance during Japa as well as during our non-Japa period, they actually complement each other. Please listen to this carefully. If we practice tolerance during Japa, let's say, for example, you resolve that I will chant now for the next 30 minutes in one place. So as you sit down to chant, a lot of things will come up in the mind. But if you tolerate the mind, so if you practice tolerance during Japa period, then rest of the day, as material world gives you pain, you'll be able to tolerate and remain peaceful. On the other hand, if you cultivate tolerance as a lifestyle, if you try to make tolerance as a habit, if you make it part of daily culture, if you make it a part of your practice to embrace pain, to make peace with the suffering, basically living in acceptance rather than denial. So if you generally have that practice of tolerance, then during Japa, you'll be able to connect with Krishna better. Are you able to see this? Both are important. Tolerance during Japa will help you improve tolerance during your non-spiritual activities, and practicing tolerance during your non-spiritual period will help you practice tolerance during your chanting. And believe it or not, with my folded palms, I beg all of you to remember this: without tolerance, you can't practice Krishna consciousness. It's impossible. We have to go through some pain. We have to go through provoking situations where we have to practice kadwa, halahal, that poison we have to drink. Srila Prabhupada told this famous story of Lala Babu. All of you know this story? Lala Babu became a devotee. He was a very rich, wealthy businessman. He became a devotee. He was begging alms for his guru. So he would go to different places. It was a big blow on his ego. For such a wealthy man to become a sadhu and to beg alms, his ego was not taking. But somehow he did it as an expression of surrender. But still his guru was not happy because he had not yet passed the final test. And when did he get the final mercy of his guru? When he decided at last to go to the house of his enemy. When he was a businessman, he had many enemies. And one of his most biggest enemy, his rival, his competitor, they hated each other very much. And they had massive ego battles with each other. So now he had to go to his house and beg alms. He never would go to his house. But when he finally took that step and he knocked on his door and the servant was shocked, Lala Babu has come. And when he informed the master and he collected alms, Lala Babu's, it was very difficult for him. He took it on his chin. With great difficulty, he accepted the alms and he came back, and then Guru smiled and said, now you have passed the test. Basically, to drink this halal poison, we all have to go through this. At our level, we may not be like Lala Babu, but we also have to tolerate our nagging spouse. You have to tolerate your irritating children. You have to tolerate your critical boss. You tolerate your impatient clients. You tolerate your restless friends. You have to tolerate the corrupt government. You have to tolerate, most of all, your incorrigible mind. So externally and internally, we have to practice tolerance always. It's not that only on Sunday we have to practice tolerance. I know devotees immediately ask, Prabhuji, okay, how do I develop tolerance? I say, pause. To develop techniques to develop tolerance is not important. Instead of focusing on how to develop tolerance, we need to remember the importance of this virtue. When we internalize the sacredness of tolerance, we get the strength to practice tolerance. One of the most important instructions given by Krishna to Arjuna right in the beginning of the Gita is 2.11. Ashochanan veshochastvam pragyavadam shabashase gatasuna gatasumsha nanushochanti pandita. Krishna says, Arjuna, you are talking like an intelligent man, but you are fool number one. Because you are considering this temporary body to be everything. So therefore, you are apandita, you are a fool. See, Krishna calls Arjuna a fool because basically through Arjuna is telling us that we are seeking happiness in this material world through this material body, and this body is fleeting. See, even Arjuna felt discouraged and unhappy before the battle of Kurukshetra. So Krishna is teaching us through this verse that our happiness and distress cannot be the basis of our existence and actions. You cannot perform actions, or you cannot do certain things or not do certain things because it's making you happy or not making you happy. Happiness cannot be the basis of our life. We cannot take our happiness and sadness seriously. There is more to our life than being happy. That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. And therefore, in the very next two verses later, in 2.14, Krishna says one of the most famous verses of the Gita. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama paino nitya stam titikshasva bharata. Krishna is saying, tolerate happiness and distress both. Just like Shita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha. Winter, summer comes, similarly, happiness and distress will come. See, it's easy to understand that we should tolerate distress. But remember, Krishna is saying we should tolerate happiness also. It's very, very important. Therefore, Rupa Goswami has given us a Nectar of Devotion, which is the most important book for all of us who are in Hare Krishna movement. Whoever is chanting Hare Krishna knows that the most important book we have for practicing Bhakti Yoga is Nectar of Devotion, in which Rupa Goswami has given us 64 items of devotional service. And there, the 11th item is equilibrium in loss and gain. Basically, learning to tolerate loss and gain. This is very interesting. Generally, I have not seen anybody emphasize on the importance of equilibrium in loss and gain. We generally emphasize on studying Bhagavatam, going to temple, deity worship. There are many 64 items, all are devotional items. But even practicing equilibrium, practicing tolerance is considered as an item of devotional service. See, Bhakti Yoga, in Bhakti Yoga, there are a lot of emotions. Like we offer our heart to Krishna. Emotions are important, but these emotions are in relation to Krishna. Emotions have to be in Krishna consciousness. But to enter an emotional relationship with Krishna, we need to learn to transcend the emotional entanglements of this material world. And to transcend, the first step in the process of transcending material emotions is to tolerate the tsunami of material emotions that surge in the mind. Sometimes you become very happy, sometimes you become very sad. Therefore, Rupa Goswami has given us the principle of equilibrium in loss and gain, because this material world gives you intense emotions. So therefore, we have to slowly move out from this world and go to Krishna. And tolerance is the first step to get out of this world. Therefore, one of the most important verses Rupa Goswami has given us is to learn to tolerate the urges. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaropasta vegam etan veganyo vishayeta dhira sarvam api mam prithivim sashishyat. One who can tolerate the urges for tongue, body, belly, genitals, speech. So we heat, cold, so many provocations. We have to learn to tolerate others, tolerate our own mind. Mind has crazy proposals. So when I'm chanting, I've seen the mind says, get up, go for a walk. I'm like, अरे यार अभी तक बोला नहीं, अभी chanting में बैठा तभी. When I sit for chanting, that's when all the best ideas I get for managing my day. Check WhatsApp, go to sleep. So all these things I have to tolerate. And if I tolerate, then what did I say in the beginning of today's presentation? That the more we learn to practice tolerance during japa, we'll be able to practice tolerance during non-japa period. And the more we practice tolerance during non-japa period, we'll be able to practice tolerance during japa. Sometimes you may say, but Prabhuji, I need some comfort, I need some basic facility. I agree, we all need, as we get older, we need some comfort. We need, I need hot water during winter. We need facility to help us serve Krishna. And as I'm getting older, I've seen I get facilities to help, which the temple has provided me. The idea is, by these facilities, I will take shelter of Krishna better. So as we get older, we get facilities to take shelter of Krishna. But what we'll end up doing is, we'll end up taking shelter of those facilities. We'll end up depending on those facilities, forgetting that these facilities are there so that we can chant better. And we'll end up with the need for stimulation, pleasure. But this is not happiness actually. Deep satisfaction, if we want to experience, we need to practice tolerance, and we need to go beyond the superficial pulling and temptation. And one of the foundational meditations for improving tolerance is we have to constantly remember that this world is a place of distress. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. 8.15, Krishna has stamped this world as a place of suffering. Our problem is we think this world will give me happiness. We hope against hope. And therefore, we find it difficult to tolerate. If we know that ye to misery aane hi wala hai, then it becomes easy to tolerate. Imagine the architect of your building, wherever you're staying. The architect says this building is faulty, this is going to collapse. I mean, if an ordinary person says this building foundation is faulty, you may not believe. But if the architect comes and says, I am the one who designed this building, I made it faulty, won't you take his word seriously? See, when Steve Jobs, of course, he is no more now, but if Steve Jobs, when he speaks of Apple products, won't you listen carefully? Arey, Steve Jobs bol raha hai. If Bill Gates speaks about Microsoft, we'll take it seriously, right? So Krishna has made this material world, and he's saying this world is designed to give you suffering. And we say, no, I will squeeze out some happiness. So therefore we suffer more and more. And that's how we get trapped by illusion. Illusion is all pervading. Prabhus and Matajis, we are trapped by illusion. We are like Duryodhan. Duryodhan was, when Maya Danav made this beautiful palace for Yudhishthir Maharaj, and the Pandavas invited Kauravas. And when Duryodhan came, this was a very optically When this was a dazzling palace. It had such amazing sights and such special effects in that palace. So when Duryodhana came into that palace, he saw a beautiful crystal lake. So as he walked towards that, he pulled up his dhoti because he didn't want to make his feet wet. And as he slowly put his feet down, he realized it was actually floor. It was a crystal floor. It was not water. And everybody laughed, and he felt so embarrassed because he had thought it was water. And then he realized the joke was on him. So then he straightened himself up and then he walked. And later on, there was actually a lake. But again, he thought it was now a normal floor. So he walked straight into it and fell into the lake. And then again, everybody laughed. Then he got up. Then they were walking. There was a door. He thought it is a door. So he closely pulled. But then it was not a door. It was such an illusion created. It was actually dazzling, some jewels. It was designed in such a way that it appeared to be a door. But he actually could walk through it. And later on, there was actually a door, but he thought it's a walkway. So he walked straight into that door and banged his head and got a bump on his head. And again, everybody laughed. So Duryodhana, he became an object of ridicule and joke. So when we read these pastimes or watch it on, in some serial, Mahabharata serial, we laugh. But we don't realize that we are also fooled by Maya Dana, by Maya Devi, like Duryodhana. We are also like Duryodhana. In this world, what is not important, we have taken that as very, very seriously. And what is supposed to be very serious, we have taken it very jokingly. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagriti sanyami. We've got our basic fundas wrong. And like Duryodhana, we are constantly trapped by this illusion. We are bewildered by this material world. And therefore, we are in Maya. And when we learn to practice tolerance, we can see through. So therefore, when we get desires, for example, we just tolerate. And we let those desires pass. Like if an uninvited guest comes to your house and you are polite, so you can't tell him get out. But the guest refuses to leave after 2 days, 3 days, then you want him to get out. What do? You don't give breakfast. And the guest says, "Arey, bhook lagi hai." We say, "Nahi, aaj breakfast nahi ban raha hamare ghar mein." So then he says, "Acha, kuch snacks hai?" "Nahi, snacks nahi hai." Then lunchtime he says, "Lunch khilao." "Nahi, hum lunch nahi khilate." Arey, then after that he says, "Dinner?" "No dinner." Then he says, "I think I better leave." Then you say, "Oh, sorry, you have to leave." So when an uninvited guest comes, Srila Prabhupada spoke that about fever also. He said, fever is an uninvited guest. Don't feed, it will go away. So similarly, when we get these desires, a flow, a surge of desires in our heart, in our mind, if we don't fulfill them, if we practice tolerance, then it will go away eventually. Therefore, tolerance is extremely important. And if you're finding practice of tolerance painful, then there is a very important method you can practice, which is Draupadi's method of crying for Krishna. When Draupadi called out to Krishna, actually Krishna took a long time to come. Actually, Krishna didn't come initially because she was arguing with Bhishma, Drona, her own husbands. Then she was holding her sari with her both hands. Only when she let go and there was tears in her eyes, then Krishna came. And later on, when Draupadi asked Krishna why you took so long, Krishna said, "I took so long because you took long to cry, because I travel on the Ashru Patha." Ashru means tears, Patha means path. Krishna travels on the Ashru Path. Ashrupat means the path of tears. When we cry, just like you travel on the road, Krishna travels on the path of tears of his devotees. So when devotees shed a drop of tear, they say, "Krishna, it's so difficult to tolerate. I'm finding it so painful. I'm addicted to watching Netflix. I'm addicted to pornography, or I have bad habits. I drink, I smoke. Krishna, I want to practice tolerance. I can't do this." Then in that drop of tear, you will be amazed by how Krishna empowers us. So let us practice tolerance. Now it is 4:57 in my watch. So till 5:10, can we chant Japa together, all of us? I'll be happy to chant with you because I've seen my best moments in these ABC sessions that we have is when we all come together and chant, because I feel very protected and very sheltered in your association. And when I chant with you, I feel very connected to Krishna. So thank you very much. Let us all chant together. जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद।